Acting naive might have saved my life. I grew up in a shady area and would rarely leave home after 7 or 8 p.m. as it was considered dangerous. Going into high school, I got a pit bull. He was a gentle giant who loved everyone and everything. He had some protection work training before he joined our family, but as he was getting older he retired, and I took him home with me. So, back to the story. I was, at this time, 17 female, short, blonde but very aware of my size, but having a big scary dog. I finally felt safe walking alone, and on that very night I had set out to take a longer walk, as my dog, let's call him Meatball, really needed to run off some energy. I took him to the woods near my home and we walked along a gravel path that was partly lit. It was around 11 p.m. and quite dark outside. As we walked, I became aware of the fact that there really wasn't anyone else around. We walked for about 15 minutes before a man turned up behind us. We continued to walk, and I noticed he is taking the same turns as me and Meatball. I sped up, feeling my heart beating in my chest. Meatball, who normally spent his time sniffing at the end of the leash, was now also very aware of the situation. He had slowed down and gotten so close to my leg with full focus on this man. I started turning at every turn I could, and the man followed, even though we were now walking in circles. He started getting closer and closer to us, as I am now sure he is following us. I remember something my father once told us: never let someone follow you, as you're most vulnerable from behind. If you get in a situation where you can force your stalker to pass you. Do. I stopped, grabbed onto Meatball's leash. I leaned back in the leash acting as I have to put my entire body weight in holding him back. Now, I am aware that I at this point in my life looked small and weak, but as my father is an old veteran, I could fight before I could walk, and even holding Meatball back was not a task as I was a lot stronger than I looked. Whoa, I called out, trying to sound as naive as I could, hoping that if I did have to fight I would surprise him with my strength. Excuse me, my dog really does not like people, and I can't really hold him back when he lunges. If I step to the side, could you pass us so I have a chance at holding him back? As I say this, Meatball starts barking, growling and snapping towards the man, who has now stopped. He looks me up and down, stares at Meatball, and turns around, not saying a word. He left quickly, and I called my parents and asked them to meet me, as I now realized he could easily hide anywhere on our walk back. My dad showed up only a few minutes later, baseball bat in hand. Nothing really happened, but after being followed by this man at every turn I took for at least 35 minutes. I know this could have ended really badly if I had not had Meatball or my dad close by. I won't be leaving the lobby at night from now on. In late 2020, I was working at a chain hotel off the interstate. I won't say which hotel, but it is a major brand. I was training a co-worker for the night audit shift. She and I are both of mid-20 seconds. Around 3 a.m. after all the paperwork for the day was done, I decided to show her the different room types, starting with the largest suite up on the 3rd floor. Upon arriving on the 3rd floor, we got off the elevator, started walking down the hall, and noticed a man who was sweating profusely just standing in the doorway of his room. He definitely seemed intoxicated at the least. We walked by him, greeting him, as one does, and get no response. The fear was suddenly palpable. We get to the suite I am showing her, and as soon as the door shuts I say, that guy is giving me a weird vibe. I don't think we should walk past him again to get back to the elevator, and suggest we instead continue down the hall to the stairs. As soon as we exit the room, we immediately notice the man is not only not back in his room, but facing us and watching us. I whisper to her, "Girl, take your shoes off, we're gonna run down the steps and out into the parking lot." Okay, she agrees, and we take our shoes off at the top of the stairwell and bolt down the steps and out into the parking lot. We enter back into the building and run into the office and check the cameras. Sure enough, that man had followed us down the steps and was now looking for us in the hallway by the door to the parking lot. We check the reservation tied to the room number so I can inform my manager and tell them to place this person on the do not rent list. All remember was that his name was extraordinarily normal, so unforgettable it could have been John Smith. Jump forward to late 2021 and I turn on the local news and see this man who followed us down the steps that night. His name was Anthony Robinson, now dubbed the shopping cart killer, who killed 2 women in Harrisonburg and 2 more that we know of in Northern Virginia. He is known to have utilized hotels to meet and then victimized women he was communicating with online. This was my only close encounter, and definitely creepy in hindsight. I think I was almost kidnapped tonight. Now that I'm safe at home, I'm beginning to process what happened, and I don't know if I'll be able to sleep. I, 25 female, had friends from out of state come into town for the weekend, and we decided to go downtown for drinks. I drove separately because they were coming from an errand. Around 2 a.m. we decided to leave, and my car was parked in a garage a block over from where my friends parked. I say my goodbyes and begin the short walk to the garage. As soon as I hit the corner, Two large men begin walking behind me. I try to subtly put space between us. They suddenly whistle loudly and shout. But I don't see anybody ahead. I don't acknowledge it but start walking faster. I pass an alley to my left, and there's another guy walking out of it towards me. At this point, I'm no longer subtly walking fast. I make it into the garage, and I parked by the entrance. So I quickly slip into my car and lock the doors. I turn around to look behind me, and I see the guys that were following me stop at the entrance of the garage and watch my car. They talk for a minute before they spread out and stand across the entrance, blocking the exit. I don't move. I keep watching until other vehicles start coming in, forcing them to move. I take the opportunity to quickly pull out and floor it out of there. I could be paranoid, but my instincts were telling me something was up as soon as I saw them initially, and now I can't sleep. My daughter was being stalked at a small amusement park by a couple. My daughter was about 8 or 9 at the time. We'll call her D for daughter. My mom loved taking her to this local amusement park where we live, and it had rides, rock climbing walls, etc. On this particular day, D was climbing all the walls. She would hit the bell on the first try at the top, climb down and go to a more difficult section. That's when my mom noticed him. A couple of them 30 seconds or 40 seconds whispering to each other and looking at Jearrod. So, my mom told D they were going somewhere different and moved to another section of the park. Not more than 5 minutes later, there they were again, staring at Jearrod and whispering to each other. They left again only to see the couple again getting closer to D. At that point, my mom was becoming paranoid and decided to leave. That's when they approached them both. They were trying to talk to D, and luckily my mom has an instinct with creepy people and snagged D and put her behind her. And this is what she told them. "What business do you have talking to an 8-year-old? You fucking weird ass perverts. You didn't think I had seen you following us all around the park staring at my granddaughter and whispering to each other. I'm calling the police." At that point they left in an absolute hurry. Didn't even give an explanation. Thanks, Mom. Who knows what their intentions were. But I'm glad we never got to find out. Glad to have such an observant mom in this situation. Stalked in Target. This happened last night and I'm still rattled. My wife and I went to Target last night to pick up some tea and soups because she had a bad head cold and couldn't stand eating anything hard. She stayed in the car and I went in to grab what she liked and needed to make her feel better. I walked in and grabbed water from Starbucks and turned to grab a handheld basket. At the time I didn't notice a man in Starbucks watching me as I walked through the aisles looking for anything else to make her feel better or happy. I noticed him fall into step beside me. Coming from a southern background, I simply smiled and kept a subtle eye on him. He kept trying to talk to me, asking how I was, if I had a boyfriend, if he could have my number, etc. I kept my answers short and unmistakably uninterested in his company. I informed him I was married and held up my wedding ring for him to see. He got huffy and again asked if he could have my number. I said no and to leave me alone. He starts getting aggressive and making disgusting comments about things he'd do if we got together in bed. And then he grabs my arm and tries to turn me around to face him. I don't take kindly to people touching me without my consent and slapped him, loudly telling him to fuck off and that he has no right to touch me. An employee comes running over and asks if I'm alright. The guy immediately tries to say I'm his girlfriend and that I was overreacting to an argument we were having. I scream at him that I'm done. I'm married and he is a complete stranger to me. He tries to argue and then hurries out to the parking lot when the employee asks the manager to call the cops. The employee and the manager walk me to the car and stay while the cops arrive to take the video footage, which clearly shows the guy stalking me from Starbucks around the store. And my statement, I had to reassure my wife I was okay and that I'd keep an eye out for him next time we're at Target. For freak's sake, people no means no. The Rulebreaker, truly horrifying and just happened. I went on lunch break at work and sat down, ready to enjoy reading some creepy stories on this sub while eating. I started to read the titles, sorted by new and found a few interesting sounding ones. So I clicked one of them and prepared to be creeped out. I was not prepared though. A wall of text, impossible to read while not giving it 100% attention, which I don't have while eating at the same time. I just fell off the right line over and over again, so I decided to cut my losses and move on to the next. Paranormal story. No formatting either. Next. Again a wall of text hit me in the face. I was slowly losing sanity and went paranoid, thinking I might have misread the number 8 rule. But no, it was the right sub and the rule still existed. Slowly but surely the end of my lunch break approached and I was shook, having basically not read anything entertaining. Surely an experience I won't forget. What was going on with my childhood best friend's dad? I give this is the right place to post this, but I just had a flashback memory and would like your thoughts on this situation. When I, a female, was 15, I became best friends with this girl we'll call Ally. We ended up becoming more than friends, but our relationship was sweet and pretty innocent. Her family was middle class, Christian, and lived in a suburban neighborhood. She got along with her parents, but the whole family dynamic was just a bit odd to me. She had one slightly older sister. Her parents were older than most in our friend group, approaching 60. And her dad used to be a pastor or something, some very religious career, and had a lot to say about the Bible and such, which is why we were afraid to tell him we were in a gay relationship, and just acted like besties. I remember early on, Ally telling me how they got kicked out of the church because of some very insane lies, and rumors about them having some sort of sex ring in their house, and that CPS was called and is still an issue. I was confused, but it made her angry to talk about, so I didn't press it further. She seemed to believe none of it was based in reality. That was the first weird thing. They didn't allow her to have her door closed, especially when she had friends over, but the house was empty most of the time. One day we were changing into swimsuits or something and turned away from each other. I was facing a mirror and I saw her dad peeking through the open door at us. We were both naked. I froze and pretended I didn't see him and hoped he'd go away. Then he was gone and I never said anything. At the time I thought it must have been an accident somehow, like he was just checking on us and didn't mean to see us naked. I don't know. Then Ally would tell me about these strange women who would come over and disappear into her parents' room for hours. Once her dad came back out into the kitchen covered in sweat with a camera around his neck. Once he came into the room after me and Ally had a sleepover, and she had gotten up to get ready for whatever, sat with me on the bed and basically said that being gay is okay because I can't get his daughter pregnant, and that it's a sin but all sin is the sin, and that I might as well, because we're all forgiven in the end, so nothing matters. I thought that was incredibly jarring at the time. I didn't know how he knew because we were only affectionate and private, and even pretended to like boys. We never talked about it again. We broke up at age 17. There must have been more little weird things, but those are the main ones I remember. Like what I'm looking for posting this here, I'm just still confused about all of it. Another thing I just remembered is that they would have movies playing in the family room that my parents would have never played. Really intense sex scenes and such. Even when we were all eating dinner, I remember wanting to crawl out of my skin, but they acted like it was a normal movie scene. Blew my mind as a kid. I deleted the part mentioning they were white because it seemed to imply I believed this behavior was more shocking because they were white middle-class Christians. I was just trying to show how not acceptable this type of behavior was to their peers and such. And maybe I was being a bit mean, but also just implying they were just all around vanilla on the outside.